Greetings and welcome to RPGs Uncovered for another WIP Workshop creator interview. We are here today with RP and Galen of Fari RPG on to talk about Stoneburner. I've been describing it as dwarves in space kicking demons off asteroids so that they can mine them, and it sounds fantastic. It's obviously a work in progress project. It's going to be kickstarting in April, so we're doing this a little early, but I've been excited about this, so we're gonna leave it up here, and hopefully this will provide a great new insight into. You can drop this on your Kickstarter, and hopefully bring some new people into what you are doing. So for anybody who is just joining us, this is RPGs Uncovered. Our normal focus is to we run a series dedicated to showing just how quick and easy it can be to learn a new TTRPG, and this is sort of an offshoot of this, our WIP Workshop creator interviews, looking into all the new fantastic games that are coming out. I say all, but I am literally underneath a pile of correspondence to get other creators and other games onto this show, because there are new games coming out daily. New games being created, new games being crowdfunded, new games being released almost daily. So if you're looking for new games to check out, new games to support, new games to play, well, follow us along here and come check us out on Twitter and come check us out on Discord. I believe both of these awesome people just jumped in, and we have a number of other indie TTRPG creators and general enthusiasts and creatives in there to talk about games and everything related to them. But without any further ado, let's actually get started with this interview and start talking about Stoneburner. Stoneburner is a Breathless. It's based off of the Breathless SRD. And I've played some Breathless games before, and Breathless is usually a fairly simple SRD, as most of those little micro SRDs tend to be, and then they're heavily expandable. And I can see there's a lot of really juicy influence in this game that I've seen. Not only do you have that real dwarven feel and that real space feel, but you got Doom in there. You got a little bit of Firefly. You got some Expanse, and then games like Deep Rock. So there's it's a very flavorful game. Let me throw it over to you guys to not only introduce yourselves, but give us a little elevator pitch about what you do, and talk about Stoneburner a little bit. Let me throw it over to RP first, the creator of Stoneburner, first and foremost. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thanks. And I'd like to say at that point in time, I think both of us are like creator of this thing where like we've become like truly partner in this endeavor, because it all started out with like this little thing and it just started growing and growing. But yeah, so my name is René Pierre. You can call me RP. Super happy to be here. So I run Fari RPGs. It is a little design studio with one employee, and that's me, based in Quebec, Canada. So I'm French Canadian, and yeah, like I've been like playing around with stuff related to TTRPGs for a couple of years now. I've developed like an open source virtual tabletop, and then started publishing my own games, and then started releasing SRDs like the Breathless SRD, which is based off Breathless. So Stoneburner is an extension of that. It is like we're taking Breathless and cranking it up to 11, with like adding tons of like more things into it, really expanding it. But we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, that's generally who I am, and super excited to be part of the show.
Awesome, and super excited to have you on, and also super excited to welcome Galen, the main illustrator and also co-creator of Stoneburner. Hello and welcome.
How do you do? That's right. I have been pretty much just illustrating around the fringes for the last, 5 or 6 years, starting with just fan art for a few producers, and then slowly folks began paying me, and then to my delight, folks even wanted to have a few of the games I was making. I produce a lot of just little experiments for fun, mostly things where there were worlds that I just wanted to see rendered in art and nobody was making a game for. And then to my absolute joy, I bumped into RP, who was making exactly those games. And so now I get to go back to just the fun part of drawing the worlds and dreaming up what kind of a chair a dwarf would sit in while he does all the
Mhm.
hard work of actually making the dice bump into each other correctly. So this has been a delight so far. Like even if the game, well, the game's going to be great, but even at this early stage, it is a hoot to work on.
Mhm. Yeah, I know you've been releasing some of the artwork on Twitter, and I
Mm-hmm.
have a special sneak peek into what you've made already. And it's not just the amazing artwork of, character art that's featured on here, but just the layout and the use of different fonts and the way things are spaced. It is looking to be a beautiful little rule set.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Just all around, he is a genius with layout and producing a really neat, tight package.
I can see, very nice. Yes, so anybody who is familiar with these interviews, I like to contextualize, who we're talking with and what they are making, what they're crowdfunding, what they're releasing by getting to know them a little more. So let me throw it over to both you guys. Tell me a little bit about what led you up to. I suppose RP, what led you up to creating Fari RPG as a whole, and then eventually, well, now with Stoneburner.
Right. So like as I said, like the first like time I dipped my toes into the general like TTRPGs where it was like I had played D&Ds with D&D when I was like in high school, but like never really clicked with me. And then like
Mm-hmm.
very very long time after I was like around 5 years ago, started playing some Fate by Evil Hat. Really like loved the system, and then I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, and then I didn't find any good like virtual tabletop to play it online, so
Mm-hmm.
I created my own, started building my community around it, and then like at some point I had an idea for a game, and I was like, well, like maybe I'll pitch it to my community. Maybe they'll like it. And worst case scenario, I'm just gonna play alone with my friends, and that's gonna be perfectly fine. And then they started bouncing ideas with me. They're like, no, this is cool, we need to expand with this. And then like eventually like we started building the charge RPG system, which was the first SRD that I ever created and the first open license game that I published. So that was like the beginning of Fari RPGs, and then like a couple of months later, started like continued to build upon Charge. Eventually released Breathless, also as a bit of like, oh, I did this thing, maybe people will like it. It was actually for a jam that was happening here in Quebec, and when I released it, like none of the judges actually like it didn't make the top three of the jam. Like it was like a ranked jam, and like I was so devastated. I was like, oh, I don't even know if I should publish this thing or whatever. And then I published it, and then people started reacting like crazy on Twitter, started reshare it, like retweeting it. Even John Harper bought the game and quote tweeted it, and this just like escalated. And here we are, like almost 1 year later to the day of the release of Breathless. I think Breathless came out in the March, something like that. But now we're with Stoneburner. So I think that like what kicked everything off was Galen like sharing a tweet of I think it was about Mountain Home, right? Like
Remember the
the
Dwarf Fortress soundtrack?
yeah, you shared this because I think you had worked on Mountain Home,
That's right.
and and then I was like, oh, I love video game soundtracks, so I'm gonna give it a listen. And then I started listening to the Dwarf Fortress soundtrack on repeat for days and for days and for days. I was like, okay, so my brain is now stuck in dwarf mode for
Mm.
some reason. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll just start like tinkling with some ideas in my head about like what we could do with this. And then one of my good friend Andrew Boyd, who's also like a game designer, and we were also collaborating a lot with Galen and him and I on other projects. But like I started pitching ideas to him, and I'm like, okay, what do you think of this pitch? And this is literally what's written on the Stoneburner like website, almost unedited. This is what I sent him. I sent Broker Longneck of House Grand Rock has passed away, and you are his only surviving relative. In his will, Broker has bequeathed you the cursed mines of the Long Belt, its dilapidated settlement, and the leadership of House Grand Rock. However, other dwarf houses seek to overthrow you and take control of the valuable minerals hidden deep within those cold tunnels. To complicate matters further, most of the mine's galleries are inaccessible due to them being haunted by fire-spitting demons from the underworld. Cleanse, rebuild, survive. And that was like, this is what started it all. It was Galen making a tweet, me listening to the soundtrack. And then I started writing this pitch, did some layout proof of concepts that I shared on Twitter, and then this is where it got interesting. And then I'm going to throw the ball to Galen to tell the rest of the story.
Well, that's true. Then I sort of shoehorned myself in with uninvited, as I've been doing with RP for a while now, is I got so excited at the idea that I just started drawing little line drawings of dwarves in spacesuits and that skull rock that we've been sticking with, even though it was just a sketch that made out of an asteroid. And the whole thing just started growing out organically. That's what's so fun about it. I mean, there are a lot of pop culture references crashing into each other here, but it's starting to become its own thing in the back and forth between us, and that's been wonderful.
Yeah, the artwork on this, as you said, a lot of references bouncing off of each other. No, the Skull Rock, the uh, cover for this book looks fantastic. It's a very evocative game. Just picking up the book itself, or I suppose the PDF, the images you've sent out. It's all very interesting, and I like the little comic that is in the front of the alpha that you sent me. And it is that strange mix of like late 80s early 90s classic sci-fi, and then you get a little bit of the sci fantasy realm in there with dwarves and demons, and it looks to be a fantastic game. So let's move on from there and actually talk about the game itself. Now, obviously, you know Breathless. For anybody out there who is not familiar with the Breathless system, uh, give us a basic rundown of that.
Yeah, of course. Like, Breathless is this little pamphlet game. It is like one page where you've got the cover, the rules inside, and the character sheet on the other. So I made this for the gem that I talked about a bit earlier.
Mhm.
And then the core, the gist of Breathless is that you make a roll using a die that ranges from a d4 all the way to a d12. When you roll that die on a 1-2, it's like a setback. It didn't work out, right? And then on a 3-4, it's a success but at a cost. And then 5 plus, it's a success without consequences, and the greater the number, the greater the result. The twist is every time you roll, what happens is that your die begins stepping down. It isn't when you succeed, it's in when you fail. Every time, every single time you roll, you begin to be more breathless. That's the whole pitch of the game. And this was made for a zombie survival apocalypse game. So it was like you're a bunch of people trying to get by, trying to survive in a walled city. You've been walled inside a city, and there's like zombies everywhere. So you're trying to find resources, trying to scrape by, like trying to ignore all the other people. Maybe they're dangerous. You try to like pass by zombies and whatever. So it was all around like trying to reinforce those themes. And the other twist is that like eventually all your die are gonna step down. So one of the first questions people start asking is like, how do I get them back?
Hmm.
And this is where it gets fun for the GM, because every time a player wants to catch their breath, the GM can say, well, you reset all your dice, everything's cool, but then the GM has got power now. They've got the power to actually inflict a consequence on the scene. So this was like, you see this often in like media in general, like movies or TV shows, where you've got like the characters in there, like they're in a combat and they think they've got the upper end and they're tired, and then just for a second they catch their breath, only for like a bigger monster that turns the corner and shows up and is like, oh god, what now? So this is like the general loop of breathless. Is like you're doing checks, you're getting more and more breathless, you catch your breath, there's something worse coming in, and it's always like, I describe it as like a game of ever increasing tension.
Very nice. Yeah, I've played a couple breathless games before, and they do definitely it. You can feel in the gameplay the decrementing of that dice really wearing your character out. Uh, it's a very interesting system, and obviously it starts off very small. The core of Breathless is very small, very malleable, and then of course you come out with Stoneburner, which is much more expanded on that. You have various classes. I see you're working on rules for all kinds of awesome things, rolling up your own demons, magic items, what you can do with credits and items and whatnot. There's all kinds of various buildings. I see expeditions that you can go on, so there's a lot to talk about with this game, and I don't think we can get all of that in an hour. But just to get people, salivating for Stoneburner, what does the general gameplay loop of a Stoneburner game look like? And I think actually I'm going to hold on to that question just a moment, because I think it's important to mention that you pitch Stoneburner as a solo friendly TTRPG, so it can be played by yourself, or it can also be played, around a whole table.
Yeah, that's right. And like I think I was trying to decide if it was like solo first or solo friendly. I think we're gonna stick with solo friendly, as this is like the entire book is written from the perspective of like talking to the players, and
Mm.
GMs always come second. The GM in general is the exception to the way the rules are explained. So the alpha that I started sending to reviewers and channels and whatever includes like the gist of the rules, but we're still building like all the guidance for like
Hmm.
guided games or even solo games. But yeah, like it is going to be extremely solo friendly, as the entire game addresses the player first. It is you, the player, who makes the roll. It isn't like the GM does this and then the player reacts. No, no, it's you. You're playing this game as you're reading it. So that's like one of the main aspect of it. And then in terms of the gameplay loop, sorry, um, one I here's how it probably describe it. You're a bunch of dwarves and you've inherited this cursed mine, and you've got this settlement, and it's all broken down, and the only thing that you see there is potential, right? Like you've been given this task and you're going to complete it. So the general gameplay loop is that you need to rebuild this settlement. It is a community building game, even though it talks about demons and killing demons and exploring cursed mines. Deep within all of this, it is a community building game. So the goal is to rebuild your settlement. So to do that, well, sadly, you need money. Like capitalism didn't go away in this sci-fi fantasy
Never does.
universe. Never does. So you need money. So how do you do it? Well, you've got a bunch of mines with a lot of like hidden minerals. So you go down there and you start exploring, and then the game provides mechanics to actually the game will come with different sectors. And then one of the things that we talked together was like, how can we make how can we add a physical aspect to the game? Like, how can we make physical objects matter? And then we came up with this idea of like throwing a bunch of dice and using those dice physical position in the on the table or inside your dice tray
Hmm.
as a way for you to generate what the sector you're trying to explore looks like. And then using the values of the dice, we're able to map out to different points of interest inside the mind. So I think that's one of the things that like we're very excited for, is that every run, every expedition is going to be it's going to feel like very different.
Hmm.
So that's like the first step. You go in the mines, you loot for stuff, right? You're looting for treasures, you're looting for items, magical items, like minerals, whatever, anything that can get you like credits. And then once you're worn down enough, once you're tired of catching your breath, you want to go back to the surface, you leave, and then you eventually go back to your settlement. Also, within the mines, you might encounter like very, very weird things. Like we're making the mines very weird in general. Yes, you will find demons, but you will also find like some areas that have oxygens, others that have waterfalls, other that have like weird aliens that we don't want to explain what they look like, and we just give you a name and you figure out what those creatures actually are for your
Nice.
game. So yeah, like as when you come back, what you do is you need to salvage those items. So you take those items and then you sell them. When you salvage them, and then we have like special mechanics for this, and then using this you will get credits, and the credits is how you rebuild your settlement. You will spend this money as a group, and then the game comes with a bunch of different buildings, and Galen started sharing a bunch of like pictures of them on Twitter, and they look a bit like the building in StarCraft, and I adore that art. It's just so good.
Everybody loves those little landing pads on the bottom of the buildings.
Yeah, Galen, talk to us a little bit about that artwork, the inspiration, what you hope to evoke with it.
Well, we were talking about it. These asteroids we've been going back and forth quite a bit, as if it were a kind of a boomtown feel, like the Yukon and the Gold Rush or that sort of
Mm,
thing. And so we needed it to feel a little bit ramshackle and a little bit temporary, like the dwarves, as they hit pay dirt, are calling their cousins and their uncles and their best friends, and the dwarvish convoys and motorhomes are starting to roll into the crater and set down to sort of build out the community. And the map is the other thing I wanted to mention there. That one of my favorite things about that is whenever you can physically engage the players with the table, and then they look up and kind of grin at each other because they see what they've got in front of them, is the idea of just sort of dropping those polyhedrals on the map. If we do it right, we'll feel like a bit of a dig dug moment where you can see the jewels deeper into the mine, those
mm.
glinting, translucent dice, and you'll want to dig down further and find those better prizes.
Nice, nice.
If we can get that box set, RP, I'm dying for some jewel colored dice.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the Kickstarter and your stretch goals and all that.
Oh,
Uh,
well, I'm forking that one on. I mean, I
mm,
don't know if we can afford a box yet, but my
right.
goodness,
We'll see how much we can pile on the pressure.
exactly.
uh, yeah, no, I actually, I'm glad you brought up the map again because I think that is an excellent resource to get players, all of the players, not just the GM, but the players and the GM interested in the setting. It starts collaborative storytelling from the very beginning with uh, a map that you generate. I don't want to say procedurally generate, but you grab a handful of dice, you throw them on the table. It's going to be different every time, and then you look at that map and you can decide, how that all works out. And I think that's a fantastic way of getting everybody involved and getting everybody sparking that creativity and sparking that interest to look at a D4 and say, what is that D4? What's underneath that D4? Let's get into that D4.
Yeah, like most definitely, like it's all like generating those maps is we definitely think it's going to like be a very interesting feel at the table. Obviously it doesn't play out as well if you're playing online. There's like we'll
Mhm.
probably like hint at some ways where you can do that when you're playing online, but like do throwing those physical dice and using them to create the map is definitely going to kind of feel special, and that's like a feeling we want to reinforce in other areas. Like we've been talking about like potentially having like a map where you can like see the different buildings and maybe like print it out and then share them with the players, and it's like, okay, well, like we've unlocked this building, okay, cool, so what building do we want to invest next? And the cool things about different buildings that you can unlock in the game is that each different character class, we call them kits,
Mhm.
they have special abilities, sorry. And the thing is, the buildings have abilities too. They're more powerful and they're unique. And for example, like when you unlock the tavern, it gives you a single reroll per session for anyone at the table to use when failing on a check to make sure that they can come back to the tavern with epic stories.
Nice.
So all the kind of like buildings have their own things. There are buildings that will make your character grow and unlock more items where you can call your family and, okay, you need to ship me that super badass magical rune because I need all the help I can get to get rid of those demons. And also one of the building that I personally very love, and it was one of Galen's ideas, was the Great Hall. We didn't know what to do with the Great Hall. We knew we wanted it to be epic, but we didn't know what to do with him. And then he came up and like, what if we gamified it a little bit? What if we made like a leaderboard of all the players that play the game?
Mhm.
So what we did is on the Stoneburner website, if you actually build a Great Hall as a group or as a solo player, you go on the Stoneburner website, and then there's a little form that you'll be able to fill out and just write down your dwarves' names, and they're going to be like saved on the website, and then they're going to be displayed on the leaderboard of House Granrock as like immortal dwarves that have helped the settlement.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and then GMs, or if you're a solo player, you can bring that up, and if you know when you go to the Great Hall, you can have these little prompts, these little stories of what everybody else has been up to. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, so Stoneburner basic gameplay loop. You have this community that you're building up. You need resources. You go down into the asteroids. You kick out some demons. You mess around with some weird aliens. You grab some gems and some crazy items, and you come back up. You sell them. You spend some of that money into bringing the community up a little bit more, and then rinse and repeat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. You've just recapped me babbling for like 10 minutes. Perfect.
No, you said it much better than I. Just making sure I understood what you were going with there.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, so let's talk about the characters that you see throughout that gameplay loop. So you said you have a number of different kits. There's what, six or so of them?
I
Um,
think-
Five. Yeah, we have five of them
Five.
right now.
Nice,
Mhm.
nice. Uh, yeah. So what kind of characters, and uppercase, lowercase, whether you're talking about kit, whether you're talking about personality. Tell me what kind of characters inhabit this game, inhabit these asteroids.
Yeah, I think I'm going to throw this one to Galen.
Yeah,
I think
Galen.
you're the best one to answer this one.
All right. Well, all dwarves are, to a greater or lesser extent, miners. So we wanted to have some familiar elements to the classes that they would be, if you are a player of video games or of futuristic RPGs, you know your gun guy and your support person and your space wizard. But we wanted to put a little more of a bearded spin on them. So we gave them all names from mining lingo,
Mm.
and RP was kind enough to alliterate them as we went. So now that we have the striker, who is the kind of the commando of dwarves, moves
Mm-hmm.
fast and things. We have the sounder, who is sort of a tracker and a ranger, and we establish it's a bit of a private detective in the dwarven community. We've got the sinker, who is
Mm-hmm.
the tech support and comes with a drone or a turret, and also acts as sort of the medico and the repair person. And we have got the stanchion, who is sort of a she started as a bit of a paladin, but our art has kind of established them as a bit of an archaeologist and a kind of the team psychologist.
Mm.
And then we
In
also
heavy
have
armor.
got, well, of
And
course,
heavy.
Yep.
all those jobs are required, especially psychology in dwarves. The dwarvish world is going to require power armor. I bet
Yep.
really have to get to grips with their feelings
Mm.
when they're on the couch. And the Spellwinder, who is a kind of a classic, hoary, bearded dwarven wizard and a rune carver. And I think that kind of establishes it, right? We also have a universe with elves and humans and goblins and orcs and demons and all the rest of that, but they're off camera for now. We're going to focus on letting people really get into the dwarves' heads.
Nice, nice. Uh, Yeah, so I'm looking at the page right now about character building. It's a very simple concept, as you would expect from a Breathless game. I really enjoy the character name builder. I had a lot of fun with that. I'm working on my own character now. Rargrim Morndoom. Which I mean, you can with a name generator like that, you're gonna come up with some amazing characters. And you have little quirks that you can assign to them, personality traits, physical traits, and then you basically give them one of these kits, which have a couple abilities, from what I understand, and distribute the dice for their skills. And then you go down, roll some dice. You get tired, you take a rest. You roll some more dice. You come back up. Hopefully, you don't die, and you have a whole bunch of stuff in your sack, and you can play around in the town.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think that like one thing that like I didn't expect to come out of like the kits is like we had this idea of like giving each of the kit different like choices of backgrounds,
Mm.
right? Like initially we thought that like okay, like there's one background. This kit is like, for example, like, oh, the striker is an old mercenary. They had to abandon like their job and now like they need to go into the mine. Then we're like, what if we give the players a choice? Like we give them like three choices with three different questions they need to think about when they create their character. And I think the spell winner was like one of the most difficult kit to create because we didn't just want to make like, oh, he's just a wizard,
Hmm.
right? Like this, okay, we want something a little bit more interesting. And we came up like with different backgrounds, and this is one of my favorite background in all the game. You are a dwarven elder looking to end their last days well.
Hmm.
Just this thing is like, okay, this is great.
Yeah, that just reminds me of the I want to say age old. That's probably dating me. The reference of Klingons as space dwarves in Star Trek, and you can see it. You can see a lot of fun overlap in there. Um, yeah, so we got some
Never
cool
heard
characters.
one, but it's perfect.
Really, you have not heard that? No, Klingons are just space dwarves. Of course, I would disagree because then you
No,
have the Tellarites, which are kind of more space dwarves to me. But I'm getting off topic. I'm a big Star Wars nerd.
no, I've been Klingons for a while, especially as long as it involves that guy playing the tiny violin in DS9 as the background musician.
Hmm.
And now I have to draw a dwarf with the itty bitty little ukulele violins.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, so as far as characters in this game, I mean, we talked about the mechanical side of this, but with those backgrounds and the different abilities you can pick and the different questions that you are prompted with by those backgrounds, by the different tables for quirks and personality and whatnot, you can really come up with some really interesting characters that are going to really diverge from one player to the next. So you're not just playing these prospector types. You're not just playing demon hunters. You can go anywhere from Firefly to aliens to crazy space western to whatever it may be. Have you done much in the way of test games with this? Do you have any cool stories from test games?
Oh, that's so the system was tested, but not with this setting. So
Mm,
the thing is, Galen and I are actually working on another game called Our Last Stand, which is a tragic mech combat RPG that we're planning to release sometime in the future when we're
nice.
not busy with Stoneburner and Firelight and tons of other things. And Galen's also has his own projects, but yeah, so the system actually came out of this, and then we had to put it on pause for reasons I cannot disclose. Um, and so we're like, okay, well, if we cannot work on this, we're gonna like leave it the way it is. And then Stoneburner started around the same time, so this is kind of like a fork of the same system. And I play tested Our Last and like numerous times. So in terms of like stories, I have stories, but they're more mech related slash
Ah,
Pacific Rim related than like dwarf related. And to be quite honest, I'm playing my first game of Stoneburner tomorrow around the same time with my group of friends. So I'm pitching the game to them tomorrow. So
all
I'll be able to
right.
come up with more stories probably a little bit later.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I got in on the alpha for this, guys. Where you are real early on with actually getting this pushed out to people, and I appreciate being able to take a look at what you've been working with so far. Uh, yeah, I definitely feel free to talk about that in the Discord. I'll be picking your brains about that, and once this is actually properly released and whatnot, I'd love to do a one shot or something like this of this game because it looks fantastic. And we'll have to bring you back on for that mech game, Our Last Stand. That sounds fantastic. But sticking with Stoneburner right now, let's talk a little bit about this Kickstarter that's coming up. It's scheduled to launch around mid-April, the 11th or so, correct?
Yeah, that's it.
So normally these WIP Workshop interviews, I tend to focus on games that are already currently crowdfunding. Uh, But this gives us a great opportunity for you guys to talk a little bit about what your hopes and expectations are for this Kickstarter. So let's start off with that. What can you tell us? I know it's still early days, and until it's actually released, it's not released. But what can you tell me about what this Kickstarter is going to look like?
So this is going to be the first, well, Galen's already made his first Kickstarter, and that went absolutely fantastic. This is going to be my first one. So in terms of like expectations, things are going to be very, very straightforward. The reason why we want to crowdfund is because we want to be able to afford to be able to fund a print run of the game, right? So once the game is like properly like set up, we're going to bring it to your printer, and then we're working with Indie Press Revolution, which we already talked with them about this, and then they're going to be like the distributor for the campaign. So we're going to ship them the books, and then they're going to be able to like distribute them to all the backers. But in terms of like, for example, like stretch goals or anything, I didn't want to invest into too much into like unknown territories. So the campaign is very, very much like straightforward. If you can help us do it, you're gonna get a badass book, and it's gonna look fantastic, and the game's gonna be incredible. And you help us fund the game, the more we'll be motivated to throw even more of our passion into this. And the alpha that you've seen is going to look somewhat familiar to a preview. So like as we're going to launch the Kickstarter, we're probably going to be thinking about releasing some sort of like public preview so that people can get an idea, like maybe see a couple of the kits, maybe see a couple of the sectors or whatever, to get an idea of what this game's going to look like, see what the layout is going to look like, the art and everything. Really feel like, okay, like this is something I can believe in, because I know that those people have already invested so much of their time, of their passion into this book. I know they'll be able to like make something amazing. So this is kind of like the deal, is like, help us fund the print run. The more we have, the better. The more time we'll spend in like creating more art and more sectors and more demons and more everything basically.
Yeah, so do you have like an actual layout, an actual plan for how and when you would roll that out? Like as stretch goals, what you would look for to unlock artwork of this, or unlock more demons of this type, or unlock any new features, or is it, as you said, just what you gather from this crowdfunding is going to determine what you can create?
Yeah, I think it's more of the latter. Like the more we're gonna look at this, because we've got grand ideas. Like we've got this box set in mind, right?
Right.
Yeah, poor Kofi is in a position of having to tell me no as I keep spinning off ideas, stickers, patches, chunky dwarven pencil, so that they can really feel like they're in the dwarven world when they're drawing on
Nice,
the map.
nice.
And I'm sure he's got his head in his hands as I rack up a potential price tag in mind. But
Right.
that's what we do here. We want to give people an experience as much as we're able to.
Yeah. No, I love all those little accessories and extras and add-ons. So all you people out in the audience, whether here on Twitch or later on YouTube, drop some comments in the comments. Let us know. Let these two awesome people know what you might if those sound good. If you would pay extra for that, if you want to see something like that. I can't guarantee we're actually gonna pressure RP into doing any of those things, but I'd love to see what you'd want from stretch goals.
Yeah, most definitely. That's for sure. That like if you have ideas, like send them our way. We already have like a bunch of things that we would like to do, and the more we fund, the more we'll be able to take them and make them real. I see Andy from Penny and Games is in the chat. Andy, you can be sure that we'll ping you to print some Stoneburner stickers using your gear. So
Awesome. Yeah, so what it's looking like so far is obviously there's going to be a digital version and you're looking for a print run. So is that about what the Kickstarter is going to look like? You're going to have pledge for digital, pledge for physical, and then support as much as you can, basically?
yeah, like considering that it's my first Kickstarter, that's the general deal. We do have things planned we're for like March and April with like a bunch of creators to help like us hype the game, and we have a
Nice.
surprise for April, potential surprise. I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's going to be, if it plans out, it's going to be very, very cool. But in terms of like rewards, it's going to be like the prices are going to be in Canadian because I'm like my company is based in Canada, so like I think let me look. That's why I write it down because I forget. The prices are going to be like $20 Canadian for the digital version and 35 Canadian for the physical. So converted in USD, like it sounds big, but it's not because the Canadian money isn't worth a lot compared to the USD. But yeah, so that's going to be the two rewards and basically no stretch goals. We just want to fund this very cool project that we're passionate about.
Yeah. No, that's great. You have a goal in mind and you're going straight for it. I know a lot of people have gotten way overwhelmed by trying to do too many things at once. So I think that's commendable and a great idea, especially for a first Kickstarter. So let me ask you then what the timeline is looking like for Stoneburner. Obviously, the Kickstarter isn't going to start until the 11th. What's your timeline between then and actual fulfillment of those physical copies? As
So
much as you can
the
say at this
games,
point.
yeah. The general timeline that we have in mind right now is that we're probably like the game's already in pretty good shape.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
as you've seen from the alpha, like we want to spend the next couple of months making it really refine it and like make sure that it's a very high quality product and then bring it to your printer and then ship it. And we're thinking that like probably between October and December of this year, people will be able to get their hands on a physical copy. And the reason why we want to make it as like
Mm-hmm.
not as far away as possible, but we want to be realistic
Yeah.
because there's a couple of things like that we're still uncertain about. But at least we've like solidified like very good partnerships. Like for example, everything that's related to like global distribution, we know that we can count on the awesome folks of Indie Press Revolution to handle that. So we know that like one of the most important aspect of like taking the books and shipping them to people, that's taken care of.
Yes.
So basically, we just need to finish this great game, get those books and give them to IPR. So that's like in terms of risks, that's just that. But we still want to be pessimistic in terms of timeline and try to over deliver if we can.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's always a good idea to build in a healthy buffer there because there can be a lot of disruptions when it comes to supply lines and print runs and having to get reprinted and then distribution, shipping. It could be a whole thing. I know. Uh, all right, so you're looking at sometime later in the year, sometime holiday season, December-ish for physical copies.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, let's look even further ahead, just slightly. Little sneak preview. What's next for Fari RPG or for both of you? Do you have anything
Well,
else coming up?
Oh, I can jump in here for a moment. Did just complete my first Kickstarter, which also had no stretch goals because we probably all have one of those projects that is still sending out the occasional yearly or monthly email to tell
Mm,
you that they'll get it done. They promise. But that is how we met. Was over me working on my own Breathless game. That is called The Facility. That has just finished funding and will be delivering sometime also in quarter 4 this year. A little zine, all black and white, about amnesiac test subjects on the run in a horrific mechanical labyrinth. And the two kind of add-ons to your basic breathless mechanics are that when you catch your breath, your Terminator-like nemesis gets stronger and more horrifying. And my favorite part about Breathless, and this is the part that I just geeked out at RP about for quite a while when we first started talking, is that dice mechanic, that degrading dice mechanic, is just incredible for crafting. You don't need every action to be a violent one or a very tool centric one. You just have a die that is, say, guitar. And when you guitar at D8 level. And so it really lends itself well towards crafting and weird science.
Mm,
So that game's going to have quite a lot of portal-like and steam-like gravity guns and energy beams and shrinking rays and pet black holes and all sorts of other oddities.
nice. Yeah, you're gonna have to send me a link to that or some more information because that sounds awesome.
I'd be delighted.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, what about you, RP? I mean, I know you said you got your head in the game with Stoneburner, but you have a lot of other projects you're working on. As far as I know, what else is coming down the pipeline for you?
Right, and just before I talk more about my stuff, just want to shout out the facility looks absolutely fantastic. Galen has shared like a bunch of things about it. I'm very hyped. I also like the fact that like he's used the page numbers as rolling tables for the game, and this is one of the thing that I think is like so cool in terms of like using the actual like page numbers and using them as a tool as a mechanic for the game. I thought it was very
Mm,
nice, and also the art is fantastic. I'm hyped for this art. But yeah, as for my end, we're also working together on our last stand, so that's like something that's more of the long run. But this big Mac game is going to take some of our time, both of our time, once Stoneburner is pretty much
mm-hmm,
finished. So that's like the other thing that I'm mostly working on. Apart from that, another project that we collaborated on is called Firelights, which is a solo Metroidvania, like little trifold game that I released 3 weeks ago, and which was just covered this morning in a Dicebreaker article, and
mm.
I wasn't aware of it, but that's absolutely fantastic.
Well, that's something to wake up
Um,
to.
yeah, and yeah, so this we're organizing a game jam. So as I released the game, I also open licensed and created an SRD for all of the game rules, and we're organizing a jam. And already like 82 people have joined the jam, and it starts in a couple of days. So yeah, that's a couple of things I'm working on, but mostly trying to stay focused this time. Even Firelights wasn't supposed to happen, but like when inspiration kicks in, you gotta use
Hmm.
it. So but yeah, mostly Stoneburner in our last stand, but mostly Stoneburner. Gotta finish this game.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, I posted a link to Fari RPGs, and you can follow these two amazing people over on Twitter. Their tags are on the overlay over there. Let's wrap it up here. Do you guys have any final closing remarks, final pitches for Stoneburner and your projects? What do you want to leave people with?
Oh, that's a big question.
It's an open-ended
Just
question, yeah.
um, I guess. Well, on my Galen, you can go afterwards, but I guess I'll say like, if you're curious about Stoneburner, just head over to stoneburner.farryrpgs.com. You'll find a bunch of information about the game, and honestly, if the art that Galen has made doesn't hook you, I don't know what will.
Hmm.
He said it. We're going to do our best to make those minds as dark and deep and demonic as we can. And I just hope that your viewers, listeners, what do we call them these days, have got the stones to send their dwarves down into
There
the
you
depths
go.
and bring back some treasures.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, uh, let's see if you guys have the stones out there, audience. Go check those links. Go sign up for the reveal for the Kickstarter, and be sure to tune in on August. Not tune in here, but tune in on Kickstarter, August 11th for that launch. I'm really excited for it. Uh, Thank you both for coming on and speaking to me. I had a great time talking with you. Thank you for sending me all of these resources for me to geek out over. And I really do wish you guys the best of luck with this project and with the Kickstarter, getting that funded and making just the best game that you can, because from just what you've created already as a baseline, it looks fantastic. So seeing this well funded and supported by the community, I can only imagine what you guys come up with. So thank you so much for joining us. This has been another WIP Workshop creator interview talking about Stoneburner. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy time zone, everybody, and we'll see you next Wednesday for another WIP Workshop creator interview. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.